Two Dutch women, Kris Kremers 21 and Lisanne Froon 22, went on a 5 to 6 hour hike near Bogota, close to the Continental Divide of Panama, on April 1, 2014. Kris and Lisanne had come to Panama to study Spanish and volunteer to work with children in the community. Their remains were found 2 months later in mysterious circumstances, with the authorities claiming it was an accident, whilst Dutch private investigators working for the family were convinced that there was likely to be foul play involved. Indeed, the Panamanian authorities' explanation had many holes in their theory that the two women had fallen off a cable bridge across a river and were washed away. What happened to the Hollandesas is the subject of much speculation, with disturbing photographic evidence of their last days, including the mysterious missing picture number 509, and plenty of unanswered questions. There have been many theories that have raged across internet forums in the years since their tragic deaths, but for now, the case continues to raise questions despite its official conclusions. After saving some time to go on a graduation trip on March 15, 2014, Dutch students Kris Kremers 21 and Lisanne Froon 22 got on a plane at Amsterdam Airport to travel to Costa Rica in Latin America. From there, the two young women headed to Boca del Toro in Panama. They spent some time on the coast, learning Spanish and enjoying the local food and drink. They met two Dutch tourists who were visiting the area at the time. 2 weeks after arriving in Panama on March 29th, they headed on to Bogota, a city on the west side of the country. Bogota is a small mountain town in Panama, located on the westernmost province of Chiriquí, about 37 miles from the border with Costa Rica. It is situated on the Caldera River in Panama's Green Mountain Highlands. Because of its elevation, 3,900 feet above sea level, its climate is cooler than the lowlands. Its scenic location, temperature, and natural environment make it popular with Panamanians and attract tourists and retirees worldwide. Lisanne had just graduated with a degree in applied sciences in September 2013, and Kris was studying for a degree in cultural social education. The two women from Amersfoort in the Netherlands met whilst working at the In den Kleinen Hop restaurant in Amsterdam, and they both rented rooms in the same student house. Together, they saved 6 months for a trip to Panama for Lisanne's graduation celebration. They arrived in Panama on March 15, 2014 for a 6-week vacation, 4 of which were to be spent living with a host family, while they worked as volunteers in Bogota, teaching local children in the school and learning Spanish. But when they arrived at their host family's home, Lisanne and Kris were told their jobs would start in a week rather than immediately, as expected. So they decided to take the time to explore the area around Bogota whilst they waited for their job to start. On April 1, 2014, they left Bogota in good weather in mid-morning to hike the La Pianista trail, an up-and-down path, hence the name. They planned to walk to the summit around 8 kilometers from the city, and a taxi dropped them off at the start of the trail. According to the driver, it was a mid-afternoon, but the evidence from the lady's camera suggested it was around 11 a.m. It should take reasonably fit person 2.5 to 3 hours to reach the summit, so it was a 5 to 6 hour round trip. They posted on Facebook about exploring the area and meeting with fellow Dutch travelers for brunch that morning. They took with them a dog from the village and set out. They set out on the walk with light clothing, tank tops and shorts, together with lightweight backpacks containing passports and water bottles, a Canon PowerShot SX270 digital camera, some money, around $80, and their cell phones, an iPhone Samsung Galaxy. The area beyond the trail is very rugged, steep, and dangerous, particularly during the April to October wet season, where areas become treacherous, and even the indigenous Gobi tribe tread warily. The trail runs from the Chiriquí state into the province of Boca del Toro, crossing steep river gorges up to 70 feet deep, which need to be crossed using cable bridges. Kris and Lisanne reached the summit around 1 p.m., and it seems for some reason they decided to carry on beyond. Typically, tourists turn around at this point of the lookout at the top of the Pianista trail to walk the same path back walk to Bogota. There are signs at this spot nowadays warning people not to keep walking further without a guide because of the treacherous terrain ahead. They had looked the trail up on the computer, and the days before the hike may have thought they still had time to walk towards a waterfall deeper in the jungle. They were not equipped for the prolonged period in the forest, with no food or survival gear. Hikers who plan to go into the more adventurous areas usually pay guides and take specialist equipment and supplies to last for days, including tents, food, and rainproof clothing. Later that evening, on April 1st, the dog's owners were alarmed when their dog returned without any sign of the two women. The women were reported missing 2 days later, on April 3rd, after the family they were staying with and the local guide, who was due to take them to the national park nearby on April 2nd, grew concerned. After they were declared missing, authorities put dog teams on the ground and helicopters, but initial searches proved fruitless, even with the help of local residents. On April 6th, Kris and Lisanne's parents and Dutch detectives flew to Bogota and started a larger search with specialist search and rescue teams and sniffer dogs, which went on for further 10 days, but still nothing. There was no sign of the women or their belongings. The parents also offered a $30,000 reward. Lisanne was known to have asthma and complained to her host family of shortness of breath. Her asthma, paired with altitude change and panic caused by being lost, may have impacted her ability to survive the ordeal. 10 weeks later, in June 2014, a local woman found the backpack in a rice paddy on the bank of the Colubre, or Serpent River, near the village of Alta Romero, around 10.5 miles from Bogota and 5 miles from the summit of La Pianista Trail. It was estimated that it was around an 8-hour walk from their last known location, and the village was in a very remote area, which would have been difficult to reach on foot. Around the same time, Kris Kremers' jean shorts were discovered on a narrow strip of land between two fast-flowing tributaries. The Gobi people who found the shorts said they found them zipped, folded, and placed on a rock high above the water. Police from the Justice Department picked up the pack from the woman using the helicopter. They assumed it had drifted to the area in the river, but the backpack contents were dry and undamaged, and the bag looked in good condition, despite weeks in the jungle or river. Furthermore, the finder said she was sure the pack was not in the location the day before. Heavy rain had hit the area in the prior few weeks, so it would be expected that everything would be soaked through, suggesting it had been placed there before its discovery by persons unknown. Lisanne's asthma inhaler was not among the belongings recovered. Investigators determined that the belongings had 34 different fingerprints, with 13 on the bag. DNA was also detected on the backpack contents, but none led to any serious leads for the police. A key piece of evidence was the discovery of Lisanne's Canon PowerShot SX270 camera, with over 100 images on the digital memory card, in addition to the passports, cell phones, sunglasses, cash, and their bras when the contents of the backpack were searched. There were 133 consecutive photos found, with only one mystery shot missing, image number 509. The camera has no GPS location option, so investigators could only establish or guess the location of the photos based on the surroundings that were visible to them. The first pictures on April 1st were standard tourist shots, with both women laughing and smiling on a bright sunny day, with some selfies taken at the overlook of the divide. Most of the pictures were taken by Lisanne, with Kris walking ahead of her on the trail. Then we see the girls following an indigenous trail near the creek or stream bed, heading downhill, away from their destination. Image 508 is the last photo taken by Lisanne and Kris, but there are two versions of the photo. Number 508, one shows in its metadata that it was taken 8 seconds after photo 507, but another version of the same photo states that this last photo of Kris looking backwards was taken 50 seconds before the previous photo of her passing the creek. This anomaly could be photo manipulation by someone. No more daytime photos were made on April 1st after the last stream picture, number 508, so maybe they tried to return to Bogota at this point but were intercepted. Dutch specialists have tried to undelete the missing photo, which usually is not a challenge when an image is manually deleted, because pressing the delete button does not mean the whole file is erased. However, experts failed to recover the missing photo, and it would be impossible for the camera to skip a number by accident when shooting pictures. Did someone connect the camera to a computer and erase the photo to make it irretrievable? Perhaps the girls manually deleted this specific photo, and the subsequent images had permanently overwritten the deleted file. But when new pictures overwrite a manually deleted photo, there is often generally at least a fraction of the deleted photo found, and to find no trace is suspicious or puzzling, to say the least. It is plausible that the Panamanian authorities took photo number 509 off the camera because something was on it that they didn't want the outside world to see. Maybe its content was at odds with the controversial accident scenario that the Panamanian police put forward as the leading theory. Will the picture ever turn up? Dutch investigators were almost sure that someone deliberately deleted number 509 permanently for reasons unknown, probably with the help of a computer. Since it is between the normal daytime photos of April 1st and the mysterious night photos of April 8th, it could be a vital picture. Of all the holiday photos the two women made on their holiday, investigators did not find any deleted photos. In addition, the memory card had plenty of space left. The emergency services calls started around this time. Coincidence? Maybe, but probably not. The strangest pictures on the camera, and perhaps the most interesting, were 90 photos taken on April 8th between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Many in complete darkness, with the rain falling. Some were taken a few seconds apart, and others up to 15 minutes later. Several shots appear to have been taken deliberately, as they were not blurred, indicating they were not taken under duress. At this point, the girls had been in the rainforest for a week. Some internet sleuths have speculated that the women were trying to use the camera as a light source in the pitch black, or perhaps to signal potential rescuers, or even to scare away wild animals. But analysis of the shots shows that many are taken below foliage and not in the open, and if the girls were trying to attract attention, they would have taken pictures in the open. A single close-up seems to show a wound to the right side of Kris's head in the temple area and blood on her hair. Lisanne may have been using the camera to offer clues to subsequent rescuers where Kris was if she was needed to be left behind because of her injuries. Some of the shots appear to be oriented upwards, whilst others show ravines and gorges and even man-made structures, most likely to be cable bridges. These bridges are very dangerous, especially in rain. One photo seems to show a bridge 3 miles from Bogota on the western bank of the tributary that forms the headwaters of the Culebra River. Were the girls trying to follow the river downstream, as advocated by many survival guides? Analysis of the call records of the iPhone owned by Kris showed her trying to reach the emergency services number in the Netherlands at 4:39 p.m. on the day they went missing, April 1st, using the Dutch emergency number 112. This was followed by a call to the Panamanian emergency number using 911. Due to poor reception, their calls weren't connected. The Dutch number 112 also works in Panama, and if not, automatically transfers to the emergency number of the country the phone network is in. They subsequently turned their phones off and tried calling 14 hours later, several times on April 2nd. Both phones were used to make these calls, and on one of these calls, they actually made a connection at 6:58 a.m. Lisanne's Samsung connected for just 1 to 2 seconds on the 112 number, but the call quickly failed, and 36 seconds later, the phone was again switched off. They never managed to get a connection again, despite trying several times. On April 6th, 5 days after their hike began, Lisanne's Samsung mobile phone stopped working, presumably because the battery went dead. Kris's iPhone was turned off until April 11th, when it was activated at 10:51 and stayed on for an hour and 5 minutes. This was the last time the iPhone was used. On day 6, when Lisanne's Samsung battery had failed, someone had tried to access Kris's iPhone but the PIN was incorrectly entered. The code was 0556. It is claimed that 77 attempts were made to access the phone between April 7th and 10th. Following the discovery of the backpack, a local guide with the help of 6 native Gobi people found bone remains, jean shorts, and 2 different shoes along the river Rio Colibra shortly before June 19th, 2014. The jeans shorts were found 14 hours of walking distance from the backpack on top of a rock on the opposite bank of the river, at least 8 walking hours away from Bogota. Some witnesses claimed that they in fact found the jeans shorts not neatly folded at all, but floating in the river itself. The bone remains were found on June 19th behind a tree in the vicinity of the Alto Romero and away from the river. Lisanne Froon's left foot was found intact and inside her wild beast boot, showing multiple fractures and metatarsals. DNA tests later confirmed a match. The laces were still tightly laced, and it also had a sock inside the boot. The foot still had some skin and flesh on it. The shoe with the foot was found upstream. Forensic analysis found that the cut of the bone of the foot was surprisingly clean and that no blood was found on it. But there were no signs of cutting, hacking, gunshots, or teeth claw marks. At least 33 scattered bones, mainly from a left leg, were also discovered along the same riverbank, a few miles from the cable bridge and dry river stones where some investigators think the nighttime photos may have been taken. Very few other remnants were found, and the ones retrieved were found scattered, sometimes miles apart from one another, but all following the direction of the river. One half of the pelvic bone was also found, part broken, which was identified as Kris. Later, Kris's number 10 right rib bone was also found, as well as a femur upper leg bone from Lisanne and possibly her tibia bone. A rolled up ball of skin from Lisanne's shin was also located by investigators sometime later on August 29th. 2014. The forensic pathologist later found that the skin was still in an early stage of decomposition, even containing maggots. In contrast with Kris's fully bleached and clean bones, the pathologist also discovered that the bone marrow in Lisanne's femur and tibia bones proved dry and undecomposed. The bone marrow was intact and unaltered. The forensic pathologist speculated that someone may have manipulated the piece of skin. Initially, neither the Dutch nor Panamanian forensic teams could provide a cause of death, with the official's theory from the Panamanian authorities being that the women both fell off a monkey bridge and were washed away by the raging water. The Dutch police concluded the deaths were likely an accident, but some of the Panamanian police and Dutch private investigators strongly believed that the deaths could have been foul play, given some of the strange evidence found. The case was first officially declared a homicide and a crime against personal integrity by Panama's Attorney General in the Cherokee Judicial State Report. Still later in October 2014, 2 forms from the Panamanian state officials described the deaths as case of abduction. When Panamanian forensic teams failed to come to a definitive and official conclusion, the case was closed and considered an accident. They believe that Lisanne and Kris decided to continue into the wild terrain in the Continental Divide region and succumbed to the jungle. According to officials, it was a simple case of being lost, and Kris fell first. Lisanne tended to her, then photographed her remains in the dark and continued until she also fell, broke her ankle and foot, perhaps fell into the river, and died from exhaustion, hunger, and the elements. However, Dutch pathologist Dr. Frank van de Gucht was skeptical of this explanation. He said, "There is no way to get lost. You actually don't need a guide." Regarding the official theory that the girls fell off a monkey bridge and were washed away, he said, quote, "No way. They would never ever go on it." Concerning the strange nighttime pictures on the camera, Van de Gucht said, quote, "Yes, I saw them. They are creepy. They're Blair Witch Project The part of the jungle out there is known by the guides as jungle hell. Past the continental divide, people die up here. When you're out there in daylight, there is no problem. When you're out there in the dark, it's game over. You haven't seen the cable bridges. I'm a mountaineer. You're full mortal on the bridge." End quote. It appears at first sight that both women died because of the brutal and dangerous conditions in the Panamanian jungle. But was there something more sinister at play here? For a start, it was strange that one of their bags was found some distance from the river without water damage. But if foul play was involved, why weren't the valuables stolen? Maybe a rapist or murderer just wanted to taunt the authorities, or they came across drug traffickers. It is a sad case, with a terrible last few days for Lisanne and Kris and their Panamanian adventure that was meant to be the trip of a lifetime.